Well, good afternoon, everyone. One of the cruelest ironies of Hurricane Sandy is that we were struck by such a vicious tropical storm just at the onset of the cold weather months, and that's what I wanted to talk about today. Only days after Sandy came ashore, temperatures in much of our city, as you remember, fell to near freezing. Then came a powerful nor'easter, dropping up to half a foot of snow on some of our neighborhoods. And up until this point, we had been mostly fortunate with the weather, though we had some cold nights. But Thanksgiving is now behind us, and December is on its way. That means winter is approaching, and it puts us in a race against time, adding tremendous urgency to the task of restoring basic services, including electrical power, heat, and hot water to homes in our city that still don't have them. The people who live in the city who don't have those services are our neighbors, and we are going to make sure that they are safe and do everything we can to restore those services. And I wanted to describe the steps that we're taking to protect them. There are some roughly 6,000 privately owned multiple-unit residential buildings in the area hit hardest by Hurricane Sandy in Queens, on Staten Island, and in South Brooklyn. In addition, there are 608 large buildings, and there are something like 6,000 individual houses that we think have lost both and some combination of electricity, heat, and hot water, probably all three in many cases. Our ongoing on-the-ground observation in our communities tell us that of buildings that are 6 stories or more, some 608 buildings in the flood zone, just over 95% now have had their critical utility services, heat and electricity, restored, or they never lost them. About 2% don't have electricity and 3% don't have heat. For mid-sized buildings, some 5,600 of them in the surge zone, with multiple units that are less than 6 stories, approximately 15% of those 5,300 do not have heat, and only 10% of the 5,300 do not have electricity. For 1- and 2-family homes, of the approximately 6,000 of them, all of those that we're talking about do not have probably both. All of those now living in any building that lacks such basic services face conditions that are, we think, endanger their health, and that's what we wanted to really address. And that's why on Saturday we sent a letter to the owners of all the multiple unit residential buildings in these communities. Our message to the landlords is, if you haven't done so yet, you must act immediately to restore safe and healthy living conditions for your tenants, and that includes providing your tenants with heat, hot water, and electrical service, and correcting all other health and safety problems that the hurricane caused in your buildings. Our letter also reminds landlords that they can arrange to have power, heat, and hot water rapidly restored to those buildings free of charge through NYC Rapid Repairs. That, if you remember, is the city program set up in cooperation with the Federal Emergency Management Agency to help restore basic services in hurricane-damaged houses and apartment buildings. This is a proactive approach that we think is unprecedented in terms of disaster response, and I once again wanted to thank Homeland Security Secretary Jeanette Napolitano and FEMA Director Craig Fugate for working with us to develop it, and for FEMA's cooperation in paying for it. This program relieves property owners of the headache of lining up contractors themselves. It will ensure high-quality work, and at a time when there's a lot of competition for services, it will protect property owners from price gouging and other unscrupulous practices. There are 6 contractors participating in the Rapid Repairs program. They already have put together 100 teams and have them out in the field today, and in the days ahead, this operation is going to expand dramatically. By next week, we expect to be restoring living conditions to more than 300 homes per day, and at full strength, nearly double that rate. Like owners of single-family residence, landlords who cannot restore basic services themselves can register with NYC Rapid Repairs and get those services restored to them at no cost. They can register with NYC Rapid Repairs by calling 311, going to the city's website at nyc.gov, or by visiting one of the 7 restoration centers that we've set up in the areas hit hardest by Sandy. And let me remind you that those restoration centers are at convenient locations, they're handicap accessible, and they are open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week. Now, however, if landlords fail to take the steps necessary to make repairs, we will take whatever steps are necessary to restore essential services as quickly as possible and then hold them responsible for the cost. Since Sandy hit us 4 weeks ago, we've been canvassing buildings in the impacted areas, checking on the well-being of those who stayed or have returned, providing blankets, food, and water, and helping others. We've knocked on some 65,000 doors. Members of the National Guard and representatives of FEMA continue to do door-to-door in those communities, as the people from HPD. They're leaving electric blankets in apartments that have power but no heat, and also protective masks residents can wear if they're cleaning up storm damage. They've recorded the need for follow-up visits by nurses or food delivery services, and the FEMA representatives are carrying mobile devices enabling them to register for FEMA assistance on the spot. They're also providing area residents with information about the closest restoration center, where anyone who wants it can find access to alternative temporary warm accommodations and other services. In line with that, let me stress 3 things. First, if your home is still without heat, please don't attempt to heat it with your gas oven or range. That is a fire hazard and can also lead to carbon monoxide poisoning, which can be deadly. Second, be alert to the danger of hypothermia. It can be fatal. Its symptoms include uncontrollable shivering and disorientation. Anyone experiencing such symptoms should go to a warm place right away. If you don't know of a warm place right away, that is life-threatening, and that is something you should call 911 for. And third, if at any point you can feel that you cannot stay safely where you are, we will provide an option for you. Go to one of our restoration centers where staff will assist you in finding a place to stay. Everyone is eligible, and you'll be assigned regardless of immigration status, so please do not hesitate to ask. No New Yorkers should be exposed to living conditions that put their health at serious risk. So let me ask our city's health commissioner, Dr. Thomas Farley, to say a bit more about these potentially life-saving precautions. Tom?
Thank you. It's going to be cold most of this week, and winter is less than 4 weeks away, so it's only going to get colder. Living for prolonged periods in the cold can cause serious health problems or even be life-threatening. It puts stress on the heart and increases the risk of heart attack. It increases the symptoms of asthma and increases the risk of pneumonia and other respiratory infections. Now, those at greatest risk are the elderly and infants and people with chronic health conditions such as heart disease or circulatory problems, diabetes or asthma, and people who have mobility problems. But as the temperatures drop and the time without heat increases, everyone is at risk. It doesn't even need to be freezing temperatures. Health problems can occur with temperatures in the 30s and 40s that we're seeing right now. Now, at its worst, the cold can lead to hypothermia when the body temperatures drop below 95 degrees. Hypothermia can happen gradually without people recognizing it. And as the mayor said, the symptoms include uncontrollable shivering, a weakness, lack of coordination, and confusion. In infants, hypothermia can present as having very low energy and having a bright red, cold skin. So I have 2 messages. First, for people individually, be safe. If you're elderly or if you have chronic illnesses or you're with infants, move to a warm place now. For those of you who remain without heat, dress warmly, wear a hat. If you have electric power, use an electric blanket. And even if you're young and healthy, before it gets colder, I urge you to find a warmer place to move to. Number 2, check on your family, friends, and neighbors, especially those living alone. If they don't have heat, help them get to a warm place. We've made a lot of progress in recovering from Hurricane Sandy, but we're not there yet. As the weather delivers another risk to us before we're fully recovered, we want everybody to be safe.
Tom, thank you. Let me just summarize for our Spanish-speaking New Yorkers. Estamos trabajando para ayudar a los edificios privados afectados por el huracán Sandy reparar su electricidad, calificación y agua caliente. Queremos proteger a los residentes de condiciones que pueden ser peligrosos para su salud. And with that, we'll be